out in Phoenix to the Suns. Brook Lopez added 23, had a chance to tie it at the buzzer, but was bumped and no call. There's more from head coach Doc Rivers.
That was a three-point play. How that wasn't is beyond my imagination. That's a 6-point swing. I had to burn 2 timeouts on calls that you should have made. And then now I'm left with 1 timeout for the game.
Now it was a tough loss for the Bucks, who are fighting for the number 3 through 6 playoff positions in the Eastern Conference with the Knicks, Pacers, and Pistons. The Bucks currently sit 5th in the Eastern Conference. They're back in action to complete their West Coast road trip tomorrow when they're in Denver to face the Nuggets. Turning to the Brewers, opening day will be on Thursday. They're out in New York to face the Yankees. Freddie Peralta will take the mound opposite of Carlos Rondon. First pitch Thursday at 2:10.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin women's basketball has a new head coach. That would be Robin Pington, who spent the past 15 years as the head coach at Missouri. Pington had a 250 and 218 record at Missouri. Her team made 10 postseason tournaments, including 4 NCAA appearances. And finally, all is quiet in Green Bay. The Packers, they prepare for the NFL's draft. That will begin Thursday, April 24th. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Kuzma looking. Lopez on the fade. Won't get it. Suns win.
Yeah, AJ kind of went too early. Knocked Giannis off strikes. We wanted Giannis to come up. Then he was supposed to pick Brook. Brook was going over. So it is what it is.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's the final play from last night and the explanation from Doc Rivers after the game. Because on the final out of timeout or out of bounds play, the Bucks down 2, chance to win it with a 3 or to tie it with a 2. I'm explaining math. Probably not necessary. AJ Green and Giannis just run into each other and they settle for a contested turnaround 2 from Brook Lopez. Probably not how you drew it up. And Doc Rivers saying as much. I'm glad I went to bed at halftime. I woke up and I got caught up with the game and I rewatched all the necessary parts. And sometimes I wouldn't even do that. I'll be honest. Like if the Bucks were out in Sacramento and they end up winning the game by 12, I'd read Name's story and that'd probably be it. But last night, the way the game ended and coming down to the wire, a couple of big sequences, I rewatched the important parts this morning and got caught up. And I'm glad I did that this morning. I'm glad I didn't stay up because I wouldn't have been able to fall asleep for another hour or two because I would have been all pissy. And then I'd be tired this morning and then the show would stink. So I'm glad last night, at least for me, selfishly, putting the me and meaty here. I'm glad last night went the way that it did. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Thought we could start with some Bucks talk tonight. Don't know how long we'll stay there, but I want to start with the Bucks, and I'll take your calls. We can continue to talk college basketball if you want. I thought last night's show was really fun. And when I'm gone for a couple of days and then come back, the show typically is pretty fun because we have all these things to discuss, right? Things have been piling up and, we haven't had a chance to talk on the phones for a while. So if you want to continue to talk college basketball tonight, whether it be Badgers or there's some transfer portal things going on, because that's also happening this week, or the tournament as a whole. I know we listened to some comments from Stephen A. Smith about how this tournament is sucked and could we be witnessing the very downfall of March Madness in college basketball? A little hyperbolic, but makes for entertaining conversations. So we can continue all those conversations. At 5 o'clock, Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs, is going to join. I love his podcast. I think he's brilliant. I think him and Matt do an outstanding job. And when the Brewers have an off day or when I just need content, if I've already listened to Micro Brew and I'm caught up on all my other shows, it's like, I'll listen to 20 minutes of Locked On Cubs because it helps me keep up to date with a rival. I think the division this summer will probably come down to Brewers Cubs. Who knows? But I would bet there before I put money or put any stock in Cincinnati, who at some point they might figure it out, but I'm not going to believe that until I actually see it. The Pirates, the Pirates and the Cardinals, who knows? They're shedding payroll and they've traded guys away. So I think it's going to be Brewers Cubs. So I'll keep up to date with their podcast. They do a great job, and Sam is excellent. He'll be here at 5 o'clock. I actually recorded with him earlier this afternoon. Normally we put guests at 4:30 or 5:30. I'm just going to throw a curveball tonight. We're going to do it at 5, and people who are getting in their cars after work, they're just going to tune into a guest. Just throw a wild card on tonight's show. So that's coming up in about an hour. 608-321-1670, the number. If you want to text or call, the line's always open. And the comments on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter at Wisco Grant. The live stream is up and running, so I'll do my best to keep my eye on that as well. Stop me if you've heard this before, but the Bucks blew it in the final seconds last night. We've seen that a couple of times this year, right? They had the lead with 1:22 left in the fourth quarter. If you missed the end of the game last night, as I did, and you haven't got a chance to catch up with the fine details of the game, let's just say that you saw the final play and the final score. Well, they had the lead. They were up 1 with 1:22 to go. And they had a couple of good looks or good opportunities on offense to extend that lead to 3 points or to 4 points, right? To insulate themselves a little bit and to grow that lead. They couldn't do it. They were a mess defensively on a possession with 10 seconds left. The game was tied 106-106. Brook Lopez is following, I think it was it Iguodaro, the Marquette guy, like all the way out by the logo, and then he ends up on Book. It was just a mess. Like, I don't know what they were trying to do. Devin Booker gets a clean look, knocks it down. The Suns take a 2-point lead, and then the final offensive possession, which is the one that Doc Rivers is describing here. Yeah, just a little bit of a mess, and they had an opportunity to tie or win, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, AJ kind of went too early. Knocked Giannis off strikes. We wanted Giannis to come up. Then he was supposed to pick Brook, and Brook was going over. So it is what it is.
Final possession down to you're inbounding the ball on your end of the floor. You don't have to take it all the way up the floor. You have it right there, side out at the top of the key, and AJ Green and Giannis run into each other, and then you settle for a Brook Lopez turnaround. Okay, so they blow it at the end. And to my memory, and I did no additional research on this. I could have, and I just chose not to. I had other things to do today, but also, like, just my memory. My memory is telling me that that's their third game this year that they've blown in the final couple of possessions. Remember the Cavs game real early this year when Donovan Mitchell hit a dagger in a game that felt like, all right, the Bucks are about to get off the mat because they were really struggling the first couple of weeks. But they played the Celtics close a couple of times. They played the Cavaliers really good a couple of times, and it felt like, man, this is about to be the win. And I believe it was at Fiserv. Again, I didn't look it up. And then Donovan Mitchell hits that shot, and you're like, of course he did. So we remember that one. And then 2 weeks ago, don't have to remember too far back, Tyrese Halliburton hits a 3 and is fouled. The only way the Bucks lose that game in regulation is to give up a 4-point play, and wouldn't you know it, they gave up a 4-point play on an absolute falling away sideways prayer from Halliburton at the side of the key, at the elbow or at the wing. That's 3 games just to my memory that they have blown in the final minute, or in the case of, that Donovan Mitchell game or the Halliburton game 2 weeks ago, like they blew it on the final possession. Those were wins they had in the palms of their hands, and they couldn't close it out. They couldn't execute. They couldn't get aligned properly. They didn't communicate. They didn't, whatever. They blew it. That's 3 games. Just to my memory. There might be 1 or 2 more. I don't know, but I clearly remember 3. And if we just look at those 3 wins, Milwaukee has 3 more wins. You take one of those wins away from Indiana, who they're now trailing. Indiana's playing really good basketball. The Bucks in this world, where they close those 3 games out, would be at the heels of the New York Knicks for the 3 seed instead of backsliding away from the Pacers. And now the Pistons, who are right there towards what feels like the 6th seed. And by the way, the most disappointing part in this is the Bucks are the more experienced team. They have more experience than the Suns. Not a huge gap because Kevin Durant's played a long time. Booker's played in the finals, but the Suns have, some younger players. That team has not experienced in its current iteration deep postseason runs, anything like that. The Cavs are certainly younger and less experienced than the Bucks, and the Pacers certainly younger, less experienced than the Bucks. The Bucks had the best player in all of those games, and by far more experience than the Cavs, the Pacers, or the Suns. Those are games that the Bucks should be in a great spot to win. They're not as young and strong and fast and deep as those other teams, but they have the experience, they have championship medal, and they have the best player. You should be able to slam the door. Those are the types of games that you shouldn't let get away. There are going to be nights, and we've seen it with the Bucks this year, where it's like, man, they're beat up, or they're missing guys, or they're just not as deep. They're just not as good. The Bucks are not as talented. Their roster is not as well constructed, not as young as some of the teams at the top of both the East and the West. But with some of these middling teams, and I say middling respectfully, I mean the middle of the playoff field. I don't mean bad teams, but teams that are in the range of the 4 or the 5 seed. Indiana is a great example, right? When you have a lead late against a team like that, you should be in an advantageous position to close the door. Right? There's some games you're not going to be able to run with the other team. That's fine. Okay. That's the reality of the 2024-2025 Bucks. But your experience and your mettle and the fact that you have the best player in any game that you play, except for maybe against Denver and maybe against Oklahoma City, although I think big picture, Giannis and Jokic are still better than SGA and more impactful than SGA, even though he's going to win MVP, and I think deservedly so. Like, you have the best player, one of the best players in the world, and all the experience. You should be buttoned up late in games. Those are games that you should win. There's games on your schedule you're going to lose. And it's just because of the way the roster is. But these are games that you should win. So if the Bucks can't win those types of games, and they can't close out close games when they have a late lead in November or in January or in March, how am I supposed to believe they're going to close those games out in April when it matters? If they're lucky enough, and if they've played well enough through 3.5 quarters to have a lead against, forget Boston or Cleveland, but what about the Knicks or the Pacers or the Pistons, who are right there? I believe they're a half game back. They have one more loss than the Bucks in the standings. They're right there. Like, if you can't close out a one possession lead late against those teams right now, how am I supposed to believe you can do it in the playoffs? And isn't that the one path the Bucks have? Best player, experience, should be buttoned up when the games slow down and the pressure rises. Well, if you can't do it in March on a Monday night when no one's watching, how am I supposed to believe you can do it in the postseason? How am I supposed to believe? I can't. That's supposed to be your lane. That's supposed to be the path. That's supposed to be what we hang our hopes on, and we just haven't seen it. And if Dame isn't healthy, as he wasn't last night, and he hasn't been out there, maybe none of this matters. But I want to share with you the quotes that Doc Rivers gave Eric Name of The Athletic and the whole Bucks media scrum. But Eric Name was the one who posted them. And if you're watching on the live stream, I got the blow by blow, and you can read it. The question, is Damian Lillard with the team? The answer, yes, he's here. Next question, is the injury still day to day for him? Answer, it's still day to day. We just have to wait and see where it goes. Question, typically on a day-to-day injury, guys might start as questionable on the injury report, but he's been listed out immediately the day before the last 2 games. The answer from Doc, I don't follow that. Continues, question, understood, but he's been immediately listed as out with no chance of playing. So is he making progress? Answer from Doc, no, obviously, because he's not playing. So we're just going to keep monitoring it and hopeful that we'll get some more information about it today. I know he saw some people, so we're checking everything out. Question, so did he have to get some imaging done? Answer, yeah, he's done that a couple of times. Question, is there concern about a tear? Answer, I don't know yet. We'll know more, which is a hilarious answer. I don't know, but we will know. Okay, well, yeah. Typically how information works when tests and exams are being done. Now, this exchange, and I saw it yesterday, led me to believe that Dame's going to be out a while. And the Bucks are so cryptic with injuries, and that drives me up a wall because it's almost arrogance. And I think that word is overused a little bit, but there's a real lack of transparency with the Bucks and their injuries that I don't think benefits anybody. I don't think it gives them a competitive advantage to keep the information so tight to the vest with Dame. I don't think it helps them win basketball games. I don't think it messes with opponents. Really, what I think it does is it keeps Bucks fans in the dark about, should I buy tickets for this game? Should I continue to pay for my television package to watch these games? I know that's a little bit of a reach, but it's mostly like people who are paying to go to these games. Like, I think you deserve to pay them more than lip service when it comes to updating them on injuries, especially to Dame. Like, I saw Cone Roller on Twitter, longtime listener to the show, great caller. Lives in Phoenix, was at the game last night. And when it came out that Dame wasn't going to be playing, right, he tweeted something out. It's like, I've spent my hard-earned dollars on this ticket. I hope Giannis plays, and he did. So side comment, I hate how the Bucks have handled injuries. They've been doing this all the way since the beginning of the Bud days. They just don't tell anybody anything, and I don't think it benefits anybody. It only serves to screw over fans who may or may not be wanting to buy tickets for these games because they don't know who's going to play. And I understand you're never going to be 100% sure, but can you help fans out a little bit? Whatever. Side rant. But my original point certainly doesn't sound like Dame's going to be back anytime soon. And I talked to a couple people today, and it just it doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem like he's going to be back anytime soon. Could be wrong, but just based on that interview and asking around to a couple people today, it doesn't seem like this is going to get resolved anytime soon. Maybe could be missing all of the rest of the regular season. And I was thinking this morning about a take I had a little more than a year ago. Some may remember if you listen to the show every day. But when the Bucks fired Adrian Griffin, I remember going on the radio and saying, folks, this is the behavior of a dysfunctional organization. Hiring Adrian Griffin only to fire him a couple months later, even though the team was winning, that's something that a dysfunctional team, a dysfunctional ownership group, a dysfunctional front office does. This is dysfunctional behavior. And I remember this very clearly. I said, I don't believe the Bucks to be dysfunctional. I don't think they're poorly run. I don't think their front office is a mess. But now that this has taken place, now that they've fired Adrian Griffin just a couple months into his first and now presumably only NBA head coaching job, I'm watching and I'm listening and I'm paying attention. I'm putting this team under the microscope. We're putting them into review, right? Since then, since that moment, they had an interim stint with Joe Prunty. They then hired Doc Rivers. And we've heard after the fact that John Horst, the general manager of the team, the president of basketball operations, I believe that's his title, but he is the sole grand poobah of basketball, right? We've heard that, John Horst actually wanted to hire Kenny Atkinson twice. He wanted to hire him the first time around when they hired Griffin. He wanted to then turn around and hire him later. Giannis liked Griffin. We heard that ownership, specifically Jimmy Haslam, really wanted Doc Rivers. Okay, well, that's dysfunctional decision-making. That's dysfunctional behavior. The team this season traded Chris Middleton and their recent first-round pick for Kyle Kuzma, which, I don't want to relitigate the Chris Middleton-Kyle Kuzma trade, but that trade can be best described in the big picture as an admission of defeat. We held on to this guy too long. We now have to cut bait and get anything in return that we can. And the return was Kyle Kuzma. Okay. In just the last couple of weeks, Bobby Portis was suspended for taking drugs that were prescribed to somebody else. Was it a harmless mistake? Yeah. He wasn't smoking crystal meth, but he took prescription drugs that weren't prescribed to him. That's not great. Something is now going on with Damian Lillard, and they won't tell us anything. These are all things that happen with a dysfunctional team, with a dysfunctional organization. And a year ago, when they hired Adrian Griffin, I thought they made a bad hire, and they're choosing to cut bait because it's not working and it's not gelling. This is a mistake that's been made by a well-run team. Now, a year later, I'm not sure they're well-run. It feels like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Their decision-making and their messaging behind their decision-making reek of arrogance. And right now it feels like Giannis and the rest of the thing is kind of a mess. Other than Brook Lopez, who I support because he's out there playing 40 minutes because he has to. He had back surgery a couple seasons ago. You got younger players dealing with injuries, guys missing games because of back-to-backs and because of this. And Brook's like, I'll play. And I know Bucks fans rip Brook because he's big and slow and he takes threes. It's like, at least he's out there playing. And I knock on wood when I say this because on one hand, I want to give him credit for being available, but on the other, I don't want to jinx him. It feels like Giannis and a big, messy kitchen with way too many cooks. The starting lineup last night, what was it? It was Giannis, Gary Trent Jr., Rollins, or is it Hollins? You know who I'm talking about. Brook, Kuzma. It's like, geez, when you have to look that starting lineup in the face, it's like, that's why. Oh, yeah, and they're coached by Doc Rivers. And I don't think Doc is their biggest problem, but he's not helping. He's just there. So fast forward, or I guess rewind, a year and a couple months ago, when they fired Adrian Griffin, I thought, okay, good organization, made a bad move. They're working to correct it. But now, a year and a couple months later, I'm like, actually, I doubt a lot. The process and the decision-making and I guess the efficacy of the people in charge of this team. And I think part of it is there's too many people making decisions. Like if John Horst was allowed to make these hires and do the things that he wanted to do, I think this team would probably be in a better space. Now, wouldn't fix his drafting, but at least I think they'd probably have a better coach. And I wouldn't have to worry about which one of the governors. I don't want to use language that upsets anyone. It feels like the governors want their hands in everything, and it's just a mess. Feels like a dysfunctional organization, and that kind of feels like how we landed here as this thing has decayed over the last 2 years. If you have a Bucks thought, would love to take it. 608-321-1670. This is your time, Bucks fans. If you want to say anything, we can continue this discussion, or we can switch over and get back to college basketball and March Madness, because I still have some things to say about that. Either way, your call's next. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I'm good to go. I'll do whatever the team asks of me. I love doing this. I want to do it as long as I can, so I'm happy to be out there with my guys.
That's Brook Lopez. Played 41 minutes last night because the team needed it from him. And I will not let the 17-year-olds on Bucks Twitter make me hate Brook. Yeah, he's a little old and slow, but he's also been averaging like 20 points in his expanded minutes the last couple of days and the last couple of games. Duck and Holman texting over the break. Brook looks old and slow. They call him molasses lightning. Yeah, because he is old and he is slow. But I'll defend Brook because it kind of feels like the Bucks right now are Giannis, who is still a top 3 player in basketball. I think he's probably 1 or 2 with Jokic, and it's a preference thing, right? Do you want someone who provides a little more offense, or do you want someone who provides a little more defense? So it's Giannis, a coach that really doesn't make the team better or worse, an ownership group that I think has way too many cooks in the kitchen, a general manager that I think hasn't been allowed to make certain decisions, and he can't draft worth a snot. So a year ago when they fired Griff, a little bit more than a year ago when they fired Griff, I said, this is what dysfunctional teams do. Now, I don't think the Bucks are dysfunctional, but now my antenna's up. And over the last year, that antenna has picked up a lot of dysfunctional behavior. I also think there's a conversation to be had. You go back to 2021 when they win the title, that leads to them keeping Bud a little bit longer than they probably thought they were going to, which means they miss out on Carlisle. And then when they eventually fire Bud, they swing and a miss with Griffin, which means they missed out on, like, it's been a whole chain reaction of things, but it's not just the coach, right? It's a mix of a lot of things. And I think there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen in that building in Milwaukee. And I think that is probably the root of most of these problems. Not all the problems, because, I mean, if John Horst just hits a couple draft picks, maybe this conversation is very different. Maybe this team is very different. Probably is. But I think it starts with the biggest of big pictures, and that's there's an ownership group, and everyone wants to have a say, and John Horst runs basketball until one of the owners wants to get a piece, and it's just a mess. Your thoughts on the Bucks or anything else? 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hey, Nader, what's going on? I like that. And he's performing. He's giving the Bucks minutes, and he's being productive. I mean, he can't be the nimble, quick defender out on the perimeter. And the Bucks have asked him to do that. That's not a Brook problem. That's a Bucks problem, you know?
That when he back down there in the block or down there fighting rebound, a young 23-year-old runs into him, and it was like, oh.
Looks a little different, doesn't it? He operates on a little bit of a different pace than Devin Booker last night, who shook him for that final shot. But he never should have been in that. He shouldn't have been in that position. You know what I mean? But the Bucks have needed him to be.
Brook Lopez the winning shot. That's not what he's there for. He's there to get, a double-double at 14 and 12.
Yeah.
And just grind away, a couple assists here and there. And you got a problem with Brook Lopez, you're probably the one with a problem.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think that's a great take, Nader. I appreciate the call. It's nice to have you. Yeah, I got a text here or a comment on the live stream from Nick. By the way, I fixed it. You weren't able to hear the beginning of that call. That's on my bad. I needed to push a button that I hadn't. Nick says, Bucks probably gave up their future. A.J. Johnson, who started for the Wizards last night, probably another failed season. Yeah, this probably, especially if Dame isn't going to come back before the end of the regular season, which is kind of the buzz I'm hearing. I mean, it's a wasted season. A.J. Johnson, of course, he's going to go to the Wizards. He's going to play a bunch of minutes, and there's going to be some nice plays. I'm not going to say they gave up a future star. It'd be kind of funny, though, if that ultimately is the case. I don't know. It would kind of stick it in the butt. I mean, John Horst couldn't hit a draft pick if he was in the ocean of draft picks and he jumped out of his boat. That's a part of the Bucks' problem. That's a part of the reason they ended up here. It's far from, I think, the biggest reason they ended up here. They probably waited too long to pull the trigger on Chris. They waited longer to pull the trigger on Bun than they expected, because I can't imagine they were expecting to win the title that year. Then they miss out on Carlisle, and then they fire Griffin, which was the wrong hire, which means they had to settle for Doc, and it's just been one thing after another. But no, you can't make me hate Brook Lopez. And Nader said, if you have a Brook Lopez problem, it's probably a you problem. And I feel that way about the Bucks. Like, oh, Brook's too slow. Well, then consider what you've done as a team and in his organization to necessitate Brook Lopez playing 41 minutes. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant. Boots on the ground last night for this loss.
I saw the picture that you posted. So it's not Talking Stick. What is it? The Footprint Center now?
It's no longer the Footprint Center now. It's just called the PHX Arena.
Oh.
Phoenix Arena.
Man, we love removing vowels from words in 2025, don't we?
Yeah, and just a lot of name changes for this place over the years. I mean, I've lived here for 3 years, and I think it's had 3 different names.
It was a cool game. You saw a great game. You know what I mean? If I were you, I'd struggle to be too miserable leaving the arena because you saw a great game that came down to the wire. A bummer to see the Bucks blow it at the end. It just a team that's this veteran laden with this much experience with the best player in any game, like you just shouldn't be bumbling around in critical possessions like that.
Yeah, and I mean the best player last night was Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, Area 38, really showed out.
Did they change
Kevin
numbers,
Durant,
or is that what it's always been? I feel like it was different at some point.
well, it's 39 when Bradley Beal plays.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
He's less available than Damian Lillard somehow. So.
Yeah, the dude never plays. Yeah, I was like, 38 doesn't sound right. That's right. Yeah, Bradley Beal, number 1.
Yeah, and Kevin Durant with the sneakiest 38-point game I've ever seen. I mean, I had to check the box score this morning, and I'm like, what? He had 38?
Mm-hmm.
So just Slim Reaper is right. That last play that Bud drew up to get Devin Booker open, genius. I mean, a quick little step back, and he was wide open for that last, elbow jumper. He doesn't miss that unless he's, getting guarded by Sam Decker in the 2015 Final Four.
That's a practice shot, again, unless you're getting guarded by Sam Decker. That's a good point.
Yeah, but great game, good atmosphere. Phoenix Arena or PHX Arena pumps in crowd noise like no other. The Minnesota Vikings would be jealous with how much crowd noise they pump into that place.
Funny.
So, I was doing my cone roller bit. I was being a troll to the fans around me, and I had to walk out with my head down. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Did you wear Buck stuff?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know. Yeah, that would make sense.
First time watching the Bucks all year, and old, slow, young players and role players outside of Giannis and Brooks suck. I mean, AJ Green sucks. Kyle Kuzma, very entertaining to watch. Not that good, but very entertaining.
He's just out there just throwing it up. You know what I mean? Like, spin reverse layup behind the back. Like, go ahead, Kyle. Yeah, attempt that shot. Why not? Go ahead. Give it a try. That's kind of what I thought watching him last night.
Yeah, I mean, a layup hit the bottom of the backboard and went out of bounds. Right on the baseline where I was sitting. That
Angel Reese style. Yeah. Don't laugh at that. That's a cheap joke. Well, I'm jealous that you got to go. I saw the picture that you tweeted. The cool thing about that arena is on the, I don't want to, on the corners at the top of the first level, it flattens out a little bit, and there's a little patio or a little area that's like a bar. It is a cool arena, and they have a little they have a little plaza in front of it. It's cool. I still don't really understand downtown Phoenix. Like, is that a place people go? Can you kick around from place to place? It felt very I don't know. I don't know how to describe it from when I was down there 2 years ago.
Well, all of Phoenix, and this is the thing I love about Phoenix, it's built for the automobile.
Yeah.
Screw the common pedestrian trying to walk. It's built for the automobile.
Yeah.
Which I just love. Walkable cities kind of suck, in my opinion.
It's not a bad take. It's not a bad take.
And any comments on this new women's head basketball coach for UW?
It seems weird. Let's leave it at that, Cone. I appreciate the call. It's nice to chat. I don't really know what to make of this. I saw Jim Polzine earlier. Well, I'll just read you his tweet. Jim is, Zach will give it a little attitude, less on Twitter, more on air, which I think is the right way to go about it because it's easier to interpret. Like if I'm being sarcastic on air, it's a lot easier to tell than it would be on Twitter. But Jim is very Jim's not causing controversy. Let's just say that. You know what I mean? Like Jim is very professional. Not to say that others aren't, but I don't often look at Jim Polzine's tweets and think, "Oh, big lightning rod here, Jim." Which is fine. It's not a bad thing. He's an excellent, trusted journalist who doesn't grandstand, who doesn't do any of those things. He tweeted, "Former Missouri coach Robin Pington is the new Badgers women's basketball coach. I'm ... stunned. Column coming." And I don't see the column unless he didn't tweet it because I'm interested to read his column. So this coach wasn't successful at Missouri. I guess there were abuse allegations. Is that the right word? Which is insane given that Wisconsin just went through that with the coach they just fired. So I don't know. I don't get it. I also don't know much about the program. I don't know what their resources are. I don't know. I don't know. So it's a bizarre hire. it's not that I expected someone else. I just didn't expect a candidate or a coach with this kind of background and this kind of resume. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's weird. That's my 2 cents. That's about all I have. That's about all I have on that. But I'm not super familiar with the sport or the inner workings or the politics at UW. It's just not what I expected. And based on what I've read from people who know more, it's not really what they were expecting either. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We can continue. Maybe I'll try to give you one more thought on this. We could talk a little bit about college basketball as the tournament now has paused for a couple of days. That's next on the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs, coming up in about 20 minutes. Going to preview the NL Central, at least through the lens of the Cubs. And I asked for his perspective on the Brewers, too. And I understand the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Reds. Those teams are a thing, too. They play in the division. I just think at this moment in time, the division's probably going to come down to Milwaukee and Chicago. Because until the Reds figure it out, I'm done expecting them to figure it out. I don't think the Pirates will ever figure it out. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to be very good this year. So Cubs, Brewers, we'll chat. Sam Olbur was on the show last year. Excellent guest. I really like his podcast, and I envy Cubs fans having that podcast. Him and Matt do a really good job. And a good Twitter follow, too. So he's coming up in about 20 minutes. Some texts. Rockin' Rick says, don't get fired up over Bucks, but that rant left me feeling bummed. I know, I'm bummed about the state of the Bucks, too. Coyote Mike says, Grant, being a casual Bucks follower, might the apparent dysfunction have anything to do with the Haslams joining the Bucks ownership group back in 2023? It could. I think Jimmy Haslam's an easy target, and with good reason. He sucks as an owner, and the only reason that he's in charge of anything is because his dad started a chain of truck stops, a couple dozen years ago, or however long, I don't know. So he's an easy target. I don't know for sure if he has anything to do. I think it's been a decay over the last couple of years because they won the title in 21, which was great, and no one will ever dispute that. But if Kevin Durant is 2 inches farther back, and that three-pointer is good, the Bucks probably fire Budenholzer. They then probably hire Carlisle, who left Dallas figuring, the Bucks are going to fire Bud, and that's the job that I want next. And that didn't happen. So then they try the next year with Bud, and I don't know, they might have gone back to the finals if Chris Middleton hadn't gotten hurt. I think that team might have been even a little bit better, and I think that version of Giannis, as crazy it is to say, that version of Giannis that we saw in the Celtics series, I think that Bucks team had a real shot. They took the Celtics, who went to the finals and eventually lost to the Warriors, to 7 games with no Chris Middleton. So they might have gone at least back to the finals. They might have lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know. We'll never know. But it's not like they immediately melted down with Bud the next year. And then the second year after the finals, things got a little weird. So they fire Bud. Okay. No one really blamed him for it at the time. It's weird. Everyone blames him for it now, though. Even though Bud's been mostly a catastrophe in Phoenix, the Bucks still should have never fired. It's weird how the NBA media squares all this logic away and NBA fans, but they do it. So then they hire Griff instead of Kenny Atkinson, which was a mistake. They have to fire him and hire Doc Rivers, who now they're stuck with because Carlisle and Atkinson were the other two great choices. They've not only taken other jobs, but they've taken jobs with some of your direct rivals in the Eastern Conference. So no, I don't think it's because Haslam joined the ownership group. I think it's been a slow progression of things that have led to this point. All throughout, John Horst hasn't hit on anything in the draft. And I do think ownership maybe got its fingers mixed up in things a little bit with Doc Rivers, but also it's not like there's a deep pool of good candidates. It was the middle of the season, and they had to hire in the middle of the season because they missed on Adrian Griffin. No, I don't know if it was Haslam specifically, but he certainly is an easy target. Cone Roller says Pingdon Pendulum coming soon. Yeah, and all it would take is for one brave Marquette fan to start the Shaka Smart scale. But I can't be that person. The Greg Gard Gage is retired for a while. Let's just say that. Speaking of March Madness, here's Stephen A. This is from yesterday. I don't agree with this. I want to play it again. You might have heard this towards the end of last night's show, but for those of you who didn't, I think this is an interesting piece of commentary, and it leads us into a bigger picture discussion.
If this continues, it will be the death of college basketball. Because college basketball, listen to what I'm saying, Coach. This has no effect on the allure of college basketball during the season. But March Madness, the madness of March, owns sports for that 4 to 5 week period beginning somewhere in March through the early part of April. Owns sports. NFL season is done. The draft is approaching but hasn't arrived yet. The NBA playoffs are approaching but hasn't arrived yet. Baseball season is just getting underway. Other than opening day, you ain't really thinking about it. March Madness, the NCAA tournament is where it's at. What I'm talking about when I allude to such a drastic, hyperbolic statement, albeit in some people's eyes, is I'm talking about the NCAA tournament. No matter what's going on during the college basketball season, what is the appeal? What is the allure? Anybody has a chance because of Cinderella. That's what gravitates you. So when
I'm sorry, I got to pause it. It's just funny how it says everybody has a chance because of Cinderella, which is just, we all know what he means. It's just funny that he worded it that way.
Anybody has a chance because of Cinderella.
Sir, why did why is there this random shoe on the steps of the castle? Where did the slipper come from?
Because of Cinderella.
It's just stupid.
Because of Cinderella.
It's just stupid.
That's what gravitates you. So when we have, something, a system in place that says it's compromising that. If there was no NIL, if there was no trade portal, Shay, right? And you have zero, the mid-majors go 0-6 in the second round. Please, we ain't sweating that. But when you're able to point to rules that have been implemented, that ultimately shows itself to have inflicted upon the game itself, that's dangerous.
First of all, I think like 40% of that little rant is word salad. I also think everybody needs to calm down a little bit about the lack of Cinderellas. Like, I think this upcoming weekend is going to be some awesome matchups with great players from big conferences with big personality coaches. I think it's going to be great. And I heard Cowherd and Nick Wright talking about this a little bit today, too. This has been a talking point this week. And as I said last night, for those who missed it, I think this has become a talking point because the big time shows who aren't going to hyper focus on where do the Badgers go from here? How is Izzo doing this with another team? Like, Cowherd's not going to have that talk. They're not going to do that on First Take. But what they should do, what they normally do this week at this time is, oh my God, look at Florida Gulf Coast, right? What can we learn from Florida Gulf Coast? Is their coach going to go somewhere, right? Look at this fun story. This guy with the weird haircut from Florida Gulf Coast. There is no Florida Gulf Coast, right? There's no UMBC. So shows don't know what to do with themselves. So they're like, is March Madness? Yeah, March Madness is dead. This sucks. No, I think it's just fine. I think we're going to get some really good games. I think the second weekend is going to be better than the first. And that's because just about all of the better teams advanced. Not all, but I think a good portion of them, more than normal. And, they do this every year. So next year will probably be different. The year after will be different. Last year is different. All these years are different. We can't just expect there to be certain themes and things that are similar every year because it's not how sports work. 608-321-1670. A quick call before we take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Kevin from Central Wisconsin.
Hey, Kevin. What's up? What's going on?
Well, I had this discussion with some people at work about the whole NIL, how college basketball is getting affected by this. And I've seen stories, and I think I sent one, I don't know if you guys got it through text last week, about how their billionaire has helped St. John's, even though they got knocked out last week, with the NIL and all that. But, down the road, do you really think they're going to be recruiting much out of the high schools? Because with the NIL, a coach could build his whole team just through that.
I think some coaches are. I think a part of this new version of college basketball that is both good and bad is that Wisconsin can go out and find a John Tonje, or I guess John Tonje is a bad example, but you can go out and get players from Central Arkansas or wherever. You know what I mean? Like the mid-majors are going to get hit hard by this. The smaller time, the Big Sky is getting ravaged, but that was happening before this. I think the freedom of transfers now in college basketball and football, like it's a real thing. I also think that whenever we need to have a rant on sports TV or radio, we just blame NIL and the transfer portal. Well, it's this coach is leaving. Oh, it must be because of the portal, or there were no upsets. Well, it's because of NIL. Maybe a little bit, but I think it's overblown, and I think it's an easy excuse or an easy explanation that we probably overuse.
Well, I agree. And, it does kind of stink because we didn't really have, you had a few upsets, but there were no major upsets with the tournament the first weekend.
Yeah.
But it's just showing the parity a lot. We talked about this a lot last year and how the parity within college basketball is there. It does help with the NIL, but kids are pretty good basketball players. They play a lot of basketball, and there's a lot of good high school basketball players out there that I think, college basketball is always going to be top notch because they want to play. They want to get to that point in their career, and yeah, some are not going to make it to the NBA. Some might go overseas and play, but majority of those guys that are playing the college basketball, they're going to end up being high school coaches or maybe college coaches.
Yeah.
And, I know. I like college basketball, but if it starts getting to the point where they're scoring all, they're not playing, kind of like the way the NBA is, I might quit watching. But at this point, there's no way I'm not going to quit watching. It's fun to watch. The kids go out there and play.
It's a good product. It's not a good product all the time, and it's not always the prettiest product. Appreciate the call, Kevin. Thanks for listening in Central Wisconsin. But like Wisconsin, Michigan last Sunday, they were obviously tired. They had played 4 or 3 days in a row in the case of Michigan. And everyone's like, this is horrible basketball. It's like, I don't know. We're enjoying a Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship game today between 2 high-level teams with high-level players. So it's not the perfect television product. We all get so bent out of shape. Oh, it was a bad game. It was a bad game. The job of a sporting event is to not isn't always to give you a perfect television product. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's a stinker. Right? There are good games, there are bad games, close games, there are blowouts. There's games that are aesthetically pleasing, and then there are ones that are a real drag. There's variety. Variety is the spice of life. Not 2 teams shooting 40% from 3. Remember that. If you remember anything from tonight's show, remember that little nugget of wisdom that I just spun out of thin air. Thank you for the call, Kevin. Let's take a break. 3 minutes. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1. Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs, going to join us at 5. Really excited to play you this interview. It'll be a great preview with Brewers opening day coming up later this week, and the NL Central probably going to be decided by the Brewers and the Cubs this year, so I'm really excited to get to that. That's at 5, Sam Olbur.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs, going to join us in just a couple minutes. I recorded with him this afternoon, and if you're watching on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you'll see the video too. It's got a nice Cubs-themed podcast set up. And I recorded, like I said, with him this afternoon. Normally we do guests at 4:30 and 5:30. I'm just going to rear back and throw a curveball. People are going to get in their car at 5 o'clock. A guest, normally someone who would listen from the window to 5 to 5:15, they wouldn't be treated to such a thing. I'm just going to change up the pace a little bit tonight. Sam Olbur going to join us in a few. An observation briefly, if I may, about the state of the Bucks and the vibe of the Bucks. So the Bucks blew it on the final possession last night. I talked about that back at 4 o'clock. If you missed that, I thought it was a worthwhile conversation. You can go back and find it in the podcast or rewind the YouTube or whatever, however you want to go back and listen. Doc describing the final play when they had an opportunity to tie or win, ball side out, top of their key. They didn't have to advance it up the court. They were right there. They were able to run some sort of out of bounds, out of timeout look. ATO, as the smarts on basketball Twitter call it. And this is Doc referring to that play or describing what went wrong on that play in which AJ Green and Giannis just ran into each other.
Yeah, AJ kind of went too early. Knocked Giannis off strikes. We wanted Giannis to come up. Then he was supposed to pick Brook, and Brook was going over. So it is what it is.
It is what it is, says Doc Rivers. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Not really what I want to hear from my coach. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that happened. There's nothing you could do about it. Now, it's not wrong.
It is what it is.
I just don't really want to hear it. I think with the last couple of losses now in a row and what's going on with Dame, which I do not expect to be good at all, just based on what Doc has said in interviews and what I've heard. I think this team's in a rough spot right now. Consider 2 weeks ago when the Bucks lost in a more catastrophic way when they had a 3-point lead and they give up a 4-point play to lose it at the buzzer to Tyrese Halliburton. This is what Doc said. Little different tenor. Very different delivery, very different messaging from Doc Rivers just 2 weeks ago.
That's on us. I told our staff, we got to have our guys prepared better for that. You can see screaming before the play. We're already off the bodies, so we were in trouble before the play started.
He said no one was covering Halliburton.
He was open the whole play. There was miscommunication there. I always think that's on me and on my staff, not on our guys, and we'll have to figure it out because that's a play that should never happen.
Agreed. Compare that with what he said last night.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Great. So it seems that the team is trending in the wrong direction from a health perspective, from a win-loss perspective. And I don't think the vibes are great either. You saw those reports of Dame and Doc and others meeting, never like that closed-door meetings.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, I guess. I don't really like to hear that from the coach. Not that this explanation was any better. You know what I mean?
The whole play. There was miscommunication there. I always think that's on me and on my staff.
This is damning
not on
too.
Our guys. And we'll have to figure it out because that's a play that should never happen.
It's damning, but it's accurate, and he doesn't sound like he's ready to jump off the hone.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Okay. Oh, great. Excellent. That makes me feel better. Doc.
It is what it is.
Glenn Rivers. I refuse to melt down about Doc Rivers coaching my team. I've seen this from Sixers fans and Clippers fans. It's like, this man is a terrorist. Like, no, Doc isn't a great coach. He's also far from the Bucks' biggest issue, which I'm trying to remember in all of this. It's like, okay, so Doc annoys me, and I don't think he's doing anything to really help this team win. But if we were to make a list of the biggest issues, I don't even know if Doc would be top 3. Especially if we're not just talking about games happening in the here and now, but we're talking about the state of the franchise. Like, I don't think Doc is near the top of the list. So while he annoys me, I'm not going to melt down about Doc Rivers because they got bigger fish to fry. Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs, going to join us on the other side of this 2-minute update. No commercials. We'll be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, no Damian Lillard, no Jericho Sims, and 31 points from Giannis Antetokounmpo was not enough as the Bucks would fall 108-106 out in Phoenix to the Suns. Brook Lopez added 23, had a chance to tie it at the buzzer, but was bumped and no call. Here's more from Lopez.
I mean, it was obviously weird. It's tough because you see a lot of those continuations go a certain way, go one way pretty much consistently all game, all season. And then in a big moment like that, it was absolutely odd. It was weird.
Now, it was a tough loss for the Bucks, who are fighting for the number 3 through 6 playoff positions in the Eastern Conference with the Knicks, Pacers, and Pistons. The Bucks currently sit 5th in the Eastern Conference. They're back in action to complete their West Coast road trip tomorrow when they're in Denver to face the Nuggets. Turning to the Brewers, opening day will be on Thursday. They're out in New York to face the Yankees. Freddie Peralta will take the mound opposite of Carlos Rondon. First pitch Thursday at 2:10.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Wisconsin women's basketball has a new head coach. That would be Robin Pington, who spent the past 15 years as the head coach at Missouri. Pington had a 250 and 218 record at Missouri. Her team made 10 postseason tournaments, including 4 NCAA appearances. And finally, all is quiet in Green Bay. The Packers, they prepare for the NFL's draft. That will begin Thursday, April 24th. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
It is what it is.
Because of Cinderella.
Yeah, AJ kind of went too early. Knocked Giannis off strikes. We wanted Giannis to come up. Then he was supposed to pick Brooke. Brooke was going over. So it is what it is.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2, the Wisco Sports Show. We're going to chat with Sam Olbur, Locked on Cubs, here in just a couple minutes. I just don't think the Bucks are in a great spot. And you might be listening saying, wow, Grant, they really pay you the big bucks to do this show. Now I see why. The state of the Bucks is not great. Great observation. You're really a pro. I know. I'm kind of stating the obvious. On one hand, I'm stating the obvious because they lost again last night. I think the biggest reason why last night's loss vexes me is because they had the lead late. And as the more experienced team with a player like Giannis, those are the games you're supposed to win. This Bucks team is supposed to lose games to Cleveland or to Boston or to Oklahoma City because those teams are younger and deeper and hungrier and faster and more athletic and all of the traits that help a team win as many games as possible in the months of November, January, February, March. 100%. When the Bucks have a late lead, they're supposed to be the team that executes at a higher level and performs at a higher level when situational basketball needs to be played. And today, I didn't even look it up. I can think of 3 games. Cleveland early in the year, Indiana 2 weeks ago, Phoenix last night, where they had the lead late and they blew it. And they couldn't execute and they made mistakes and they had guys running into each other and they had defensive calls that made no sense. And Doc's answer, I guess, after the game last night, and this is why, I'm just judging tone. I'm just judging the comments from the head coach. To say basically, yeah, they ran into each other. It wasn't supposed to happen. It is what it is. That's not great. Doc, a couple weeks ago, when they talked about blowing that lead to the Pacers and to Halliburton, he's like, well, he explained it. There was some oomph behind his voice. It wasn't just. It is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's take one call and then we're going to get to our guest, Sam Olbur. So one caller on hold. I'm about to get to him. Don't call because we're about to go to a guest. But I'm a sucker. Just one. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Big Ron in Jersey.
Hey, Big Ron. How's it going?
Good, man. Welcome back from Mexico.
Thank you. Not too bad. I might become more like you. I enjoy a good tropical trip. My battery's recharged.
Good. So, look, I disagree with you. I agree with Stephen A. Smith on the NCAA tournament, man. I think that, I bet on every game in the first round of the NCAA tournament for the last 20 years. And this is the first time I can remember all the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds not one single one of them getting picked off in the first round.
Right.
We had one 5-12 upset, which always happens. Every year there's a 5-12 upset. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 of them. And that was it. There was just and the games where there weren't upsets, they were blow-ups. They weren't even close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrible. It was the worst first round I can ever remember in 20 plus years.
You need the chaos.
And,
you need the randomness. You need, to be honest, Big Ron, so you went to Vegas, right? So I saw you posting your sheet. You're putting bets. You want to know what the NCAA tournament is to me? And we might differ on this. It's something to have on the Thursday and Friday at work, or for the kids to have on at school. Like, it's entertainment. If we get some wild finishes, that's great too. For me, it's about having basketball on all day. And it's the coming of spring. Like, I guess I just have a lower bar to clear to enjoy March Madness.
I mean, I still enjoyed it, but it was just less enjoyable. And,
sure.
I think that the great thing about the mid-majors before the transfer portal and the NIL was they would stay, to their senior year, whereas Duke would have all these one-and-done guys, and all the Blue Bloods would have one-and-done, these 18-year-olds. And these seniors that have all been playing together 4 years, would pick them off and take them out in the first round.
Yeah.
And, and I could give you endless examples of that. And now with NIL, the best player in the mid-major after his freshman year, he has a breakout year, he gets picked off and goes to a Blue Blood.
Yeah.
They give him a pile of cash. So it's just, so I'm taking I'm planning on chalk continuing in the Sweet 16. I'm doing a 4-team money line parlay with all the number one seeds. So
really?
Auburn, Florida, Duke, and Houston. I'm parlaying those 4 together to win on the money line, and it plays plus money. So you bet 100, it pays 135. Whereas if you were to bet any of these individually, they're all like, you have to bet 400 to win 100.
Yeah.
In Duke, you have to bet like 550 to win 100.
Yeah.
The only one that's under 400 is Florida, because they're playing Maryland. They're like minus 300. You have to bet 300 to win 100. So
Maryland is
Maryland
is the BYU of the Big Ten. That's a good call, Big Ron. And I want to circle back, and I want to chat later this week. I just got to get to a guest, so we will pick this up, Big Ron. It's always nice to chat, and I know you're in Vegas, so maybe we could talk a little bit more about that. To me, it's just about having basketball on. And this year we didn't have any upsets. If we get to next year and it's the same, okay, well then maybe we could talk a little bit more. Right now, I just think it's one round of a tournament. Let's see how this upcoming weekend goes. I think this weekend's going to be great. What we lacked in round 1, I think we're going to be rewarded for in round 2 because it's all of the best teams, these coaches, and I'm really looking forward to it. Let's connect. Sam Olbur, Locked On Cubs. Here's our conversation previewing the NL Central, at least our 2 teams, the Brewers and the Cubs. Sam Olbur is back, Locked On Cubs. I first listened out of spite because that's the way that the Brewers-Cubs rivalry sometimes works. And then I'm like, I actually really like this podcast. These guys know baseball. They like talking about it. They do a great job. So Sam can help us preview the Central and especially the Brewers-Cubs rivalry. Let's start with the games at the Tokyo Dome. I thought those were cool, but it's 5 a.m, and it also feels weird to open the season in a different country. And, the Packers did that last fall. So what did you think of those games as a concept and then the way that they were executed last week too?
Yeah, so I think being a content person, a media person, it definitely was interesting. Opening day, waking up at 4:45 in the morning. I like the concept. I like the idea. I wish there was a way to just maybe play one exhibition or one real one. Like, it just, I don't know. It felt a little bit harsh. Of course, I'm saying that because we lost both of them to start that early. I thought it was cool until the Cubs actually started being the Cubs and didn't score runs, gave up runs in the bullpen, made errors, and started the season 0-2. It was cool. I thought it was a really good idea, especially with the Cubs having, some of their best players being from Japan, and of course the Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki factor. I like the concept, but as a fan, 0-2, some guys came back sick. Now we keep hearing about the jet lag stuff, so I'm wishy-washy on it, I guess.
Yeah, was there an illness going around the teams? Because everyone's talked about Mookie, but has that been a thing that's affected the Cubs too?
Not like Mookie, just like some like head cold, jet lag, just dragging type of stuff. I'm not sure if that's why Imanaga's not pitching till Saturday this weekend or not, but maybe they're just lining him up for the home opener. I don't know. It just feels like the Cubs love to make excuses about things like this, and I just feel like jet lag, Japan, we'll be hearing until probably Memorial Day.
Well, I mean, it is a long flight. They have a little bit of a break in between the actual beginning of the season coming up later this week. I don't know. It was interesting to watch, and I told you before we started recording, I was at O'Hare at the crack of dawn, so I'm like, great, I have a baseball game to watch. So I wasn't going to complain, and it was cool to see some of the bigger stars from both teams. And I forgot until the game turned on. It's like, oh yeah, Shota and then Suzuki. Like, it's not just in my mind. I thought, okay, the Dodgers got all these Japanese stars, and the Cubs are the sorry team that they dragged over there to play the Dodgers to market in Japan. But no, you guys, some of your better players are Japanese as well. So before we talk about 2025 and the Cubs, let me make sure I have 2024 clear. The way I saw it, or what I heard from Counsell and Cubs talkers when I listened, you had a lineup, just speaking offensively, of good players, lots of good players, some very good players, none of whom had great seasons, and you lacked a little star power to keep things stable. Is that a fair assessment of how things went last year?
Yeah, I think that's probably even a little bit kind. I think that it was a team that was built around having a high floor, and their floor was one of the worst offensive teams in baseball for 2 months. I mean, the Cubs were a pretty good team in April, July, August, and September. May and June, there was a stretch where they went about 23-39, something like that. That was their season. And it was really two things. I mean, it was offense, not scoring 4 runs, and then a really, really late blooming, struggling bad bullpen that cost them. Bellinger wasn't the same guy as he was in 23. And so they went out, they made this Kyle Tucker trade to really, again, try to raise the floor of the offense and see if they could avoid a brutal stretch like they did last year for 2 months.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up. Is Kyle Tucker the solution to that? So if Happ waxes and wanes a little bit, or Suzuki waxes and wanes, like now at least you have Tucker as an anchor point to maybe lift the offense and keep it more stable this season?
That's the plan. That would be the plan. His spring training has been, I would say, it's spring training. It doesn't count, but he has like 2 hits, and
that's all we have to go off of, though. That's the problem.
But yeah, the plan is for nice players like Happ, Suzuki, Dansby, Nico to then, be raised because you have a star player like Kyle Tucker, and then guys like Pete Crow Armstrong that I call ceiling raisers because you just don't know what you're going to get. Matt Shaw, number 1 prospect in the system. Those guys, they could go through growing pains because you have a guy like Kyle Tucker to kind of, be the hub of that offense. I think that's the plan. And we're going to see real quick, as the Cubs have probably the hardest schedule in baseball in April, how it shakes out.
So the bullpen was leaky last year. They got it turned around, and they were much better at the end of the year, like you mentioned. I've seen you tweeting about Presley. How do you feel like the bullpen could be improved or more trustworthy early on this season?
I'm extremely concerned about the back end of the bullpen. 2 years in a row, they've went into the year where they've got a veteran guy. 2023 was Michael Fulmer. Really struggled in the spring, carried over to April. By mid-May, he was out of the job. They totally turned around the bullpen that year in June. Totally did it. But, when you're going up against teams like the Brewers, and I don't think anyone's that far ahead in the NL Central, those games that you cost yourself early are significant. Last year was Hector Neris. Really bad spring. Carried over into the beginning of the year along with Alzolay. Like you said, by June, totally revamped bullpen. Well, this spring, Ryan Presley has not been good. Porter Hodge really was the big reason for the Cubs' turnaround in their bullpen last year in June. Nasty, 97, swing and miss slider. His stuff's looked a little bit flat. So I'm nervous to see, in Arizona this weekend, if they have a save spot, how that's going to look, because there's this trend that, the way they plan for it in spring doesn't go the way they want in April and May. So we'll see.
What has been some of the messaging from Hoyer, Counsell, that struck you and struck Cubs fans this spring leading into the season?
Yeah, that winning time is now. They are really serious about winning this division this year. And it's interesting because we've talked a lot on our show about this. I mean, most people have the Cubs as pretty clear favorites in terms of the betting sites or whatever. I think FanDuel now, it's like the Cubs are plus with 115, Milwaukee's plus 290, and Milwaukee's bringing back. And I know they've lost, Adames and Devin Williams, but last year, they lost Burns, Woodruff, whatever it is. And they continue to win. The division wasn't close last year at all. The Brewers ran away with it. And so, it's really interesting to see like the rhetoric coming out of Cubs camp is they're pretty confident that they're going to go after this division. And, on one hand, I see the talent. I see it. It makes sense. But like I said on my show, I got to see it play out on the field because the Brewers, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on a Wisconsin show, since 2018, since game 163 at Wrigley, it hasn't been a contest. I mean, Milwaukee's owned the Cubs, and until they prove to me otherwise, they're the favorites in the division. I want to see if the Cubs can go in there, win some series, and be ahead 4 or 5 games in June.
So Sam Olbur is here, Locked On Cubs. Were you surprised at the offseason the Brewers had? I know they're never going to be a big spending team, but they basically let 35 home runs and 100-plus RBIs walk out the door, and they said, we're good. And I didn't really think it was that big of a deal because that's kind of what the Brewers do, but all of a sudden Rosenthal and Nightingale are in Brewer spring training, almost as if to say, like, yeah, look at Mark Attanasio. Like, he's not, like, his team's good, and they lost Willy Adames. They didn't really spend to replace him. Did you think that was surprising?
No. I look at the Brewers like the Tampa Bay Rays of the National League, and whatever they do, I don't question because it usually works. I was talking to a buddy yesterday about this Ryan Presley thing, and we were talking about how the Brewers can trade guys like Devin Williams. They could trade guys like Josh Hader because they churn out pitching infrastructure. They churn out things like that. Whereas the Cubs have to go out and trade for guys like Ryan Presley and acquire guys like Hector Neris because they don't develop guys like that. And yeah, Adames feels like a big loss, but I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if Joey Ortiz or whoever it is steps into the fold. It's just, for me as a Cubs fan, until I see it where I can go, wow, the Brewers made a really big mistake there. It doesn't happen. I thought last year, a lot of people had them picked last in the division. A lot of people really had them picked behind the Pirates, and they were a 93-win team. And really from the beginning, I think they opened up in New York against the Mets last year. I think this year's the Yankees. What did they sweep that series, if I remember correctly? Against the Mets, I think they
at
won
least
all
2
of
of 3. Yeah, they might have swept. I think you're right.
From the beginning, and I was like, all right, the Brewers would come back down to earth. Nope, they dominated the whole season. So for me, as a Cub fan, which is a different perspective, whatever they do, to me, it's going to work until I actually see it that it doesn't.
Give me something that you think stands to bounce back for the Cubs in 2025.
I think Dansby Swanson has to have a better offensive season. I think like a big story at Wrigley last year was it was the second to worst hitters ballpark in baseball. The wind was howling in it, and it was just coincidence. Whenever the Cubs were away, it was good weather. Whenever it wasn't, they weren't. I mean, I don't know if you saw that series when the Cubs played the Yankees at Wrigley, where there was 7 runs scored the whole series. Stanton hit a ball like 112 miles an hour and was shocked it didn't go anywhere. And I think that really, really hurt Dansby's season. He's never going to hit 290. He's never going to be a 350, 360 on base guy. Where he gets to a respectable OPS with his great defense is he can hit 20 plus home runs, and he had a lot of balls taken away from him in the win last year. I think he bounces back to being like a 750 or so OPS guy for the Cubs. I think that's pretty fair.
Well, and there's some similarities between Swanson and Adames. Their batted ball profiles. Like, you're going to elevate the ball, you're going to hit it high and try to hit it far. And I do wonder, I would have loved to keep it. I love Adames, but that contract is probably too rich, especially for the Brewers' blood. And to now go see him play in that huge ballpark in San Francisco, I'm curious to see how that goes. Yeah. One thing you think will come back down to earth for the Brewers in 2025, the inverse.
Oh man, that's a good question. I feel like I'm trying to. I think they're starters. Like last year. So who's it's what? It's Savale. It's Peralta's getting opening day. Savale. They have Quintana. Who am I missing?
So Tobias Myers, he's going to start the year hurt, but he's probably a player. It's like he was excellent last year. You don't really know what you're going to get from him the next season, and then they acquired Nestor Cortez too.
Oh, Nestor, right. That's who I was missing.
I can't stand, by the way, I'm glad that they made an investment and they got some extra starters. I can't stand watching that guy pitch. I don't like the, I don't know.
Yeah. I just feel like, here, you know what? I'll give you a generic answer.
Okay.
And this is going to be, maybe something changes. Like, I don't know if it's the starters. I don't know if it's like, Sal Frelick, Terang, Ortiz, like, Churio looking like, Willie Mays. Like, something comes down where it's like, hey, this isn't as good as it seems. Because, like, look, the Brewers get a lot of flack from Cubs fans. One of my biggest pet peeve as a Cubs fan, and I think you've seen this on the show, is like when Cub fans like make fun of the Brewers when they lose in the playoffs and we're watching from the couch. It's like, whatever. Devin Williams had a bad outing at the worst possible time, or they would have won that series. They did enough to win that series. Like that was a really good team last year. And so I think, for the Brewers, if you're a Cub fan, you just have to hope they're young. They're young guys. For the most part, obviously Yelich is the exception. They were pretty healthy. So you have to see just, hey, young guys, maybe Jackson Chourio is a good player this year, not a projected MVP candidate. Maybe Aaron Savale hits a wall and doesn't look as good as he did when he came last year. Those type of things. I don't really have a set specific thing because I fear this team. They're a dangerous team, and they've just dominated the Cubs for a long time here. So
I know that the Cubs already opened their season, but leading up to this weekend, is there anything special we should watch for at Locked On Cubs?
I'm going to be doing a lot of watch-alongs this year, like Friday nights. I'll do my second one where you just kind of watch the game with me and react. I think most people, just from hearing this interview, I'm not one of those like my team's the best guys. In fact, I'm pretty pessimistic because we haven't won a playoff game since I was in college. So, if Brewers fans have any interest, come on over. Brewers Cubs is always big. What we think first week in May? I think that's the first series.
I think so. Yeah.
And
I'm going to try to go. I swear,
is it by you? Is it by you?
I think so. And I'm not 100% sure. I went to 2 of those games in Milwaukee last year. I covered one, and I hate the counts left, but God, that environment was, I've never experienced anything like that at a ball game before. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's great. I really think, to me, the division's going to come down to the division because the Cubs last year were really bad. They were 23-29 against the Central. I think they were either 5-8 or 6-7, something like that against the Brewers, but they were really, really bad against the Reds. I think the Cubs-Brewers games this year are going to feel even more important than normal. So it'll be really fun, and I'm hoping that we could finally just turn the tide a little bit.
If the Brewers can keep getting their bones, if they can keep making their money beating the Reds without fail, that's the golden spot for the Brewers. That's where they've made their hay. Well, I appreciate it. Enjoy the start of the season. I know you already started, but enjoy the podcast. Thanks for the time, Sam.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Thanks to Sam Olbur, Locked on Cubs. Does a good job. Pretty unbiased. I see Cone on the text line says, bruh, this guy did not just bring up the wind at Wrigley for Dansby Swanson. So I think, and we've talked about this, I think the wind is an overdone thing at Wrigley. I think it's a thing. I think it's a little overdone. I think the thing that bothers me about the wind is they're like, well, the wind, I mean, it just killed all of the offensive production and the numbers for some of the Cubs hitters. Okay, sure. But then wouldn't you also need to recognize that the wind probably inflated the performance of Imanaga, Tyone, whoever else? So that's one thing. I do think Dansby Swanson is very similar to Willie Adames in that he's fly ball dependent. So if you're dependent on putting the ball up there and trying to hit balls out, and that's your thing, yeah, I think the wind would probably hurt a player like Dansby more than most others, like he would hurt Willie Adames. That's why I'm interested to see Willie at, is it AT&T or Oracle out in San Francisco now? Back to your phone call, 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Bills, it's been a minute. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, Vagabond John. Did you move?
I am currently calling from the state of Fewer Lakes. Yes.
Minnesota. Did the move go smoothly? Did you hire anybody?
We did not hire anybody. I recruited friends, paid them in pizza, and on the Wisconsin end, whatever beer was left in the house. On the Minnesota end, a 30 rack of Spotted Cow, of course.
I think I'm gonna pay people from here on out. I think I'm done with the days of just wrangling. And friends like, hey, if you ever need help moving, I'm there. I don't mind helping people. I don't want to recruit. I don't want to ask. I'm just gonna pay a couple $100. Just come move the stuff, and it goes so much faster. Oh my God, you hire people to hawk those boxes up the steps. It goes so much faster. But anyways, not to judge your move.
The boxes weren't the problem. For me, the problem is the organization of it all, right?
Sure.
Going through your stuff and getting it in the box is the hard part for me. So
yeah,
once it was in the box, no problem. We got the truck unloaded here in about 30 minutes. So that was, we had a conveyor belt. It was real quick. But anyways, on to sports. I like the chatter about the NCAA tournament. I think this is interesting. I think we're seeing some of the unintended effects, mostly of NIL, because I think, what college sports has gotten wrong, and I've said this about football, I think we saw it a little bit last week in basketball, is they just changed too many variables all at the same time.
Sure.
There's no reason the transfer portal and NIL all had to happen kind of in the same 3-year window, right? Like, we could have tried one change to benefit the players,
sure,
see how it played out, and then tried another. So what we're seeing is rapid change in the tournament because we threw all this chaos in at one time. And I don't know why we did that.
Well, it's not that dissimilar from the Bucks. Like, they trade Drew Holiday for Dame and they hire a new coach. Like, let's try one thing. You know what I mean? I'm with you. I understand NIL, the transfer portal, probably negatively impacting smaller schools. I also just think we have a tendency, and this is a Ben Kenny take, I just think we have a tendency to overblame the transfer portal and NIL for whatever is ailing us, whatever is bothering us. We can just throw that at the feet of the NIL or the transfer portal, and that's just what we do. And I think that's disingenuous a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time.
Yeah, it went from like 240 students entering on Monday to like over 700 yesterday.
Yeah.
That we're seeing an exponential increase in that. So I imagine that this change will only continue to go up. Oh, look, there's a couple of deer outside my window. I did not know that was.
You can't get that in Wisconsin.
No, I got it. No deer in Wisconsin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But speaking of teams that are not changing a lot of variables, the Packers, they only changed one, or I guess a couple, right? They added a couple free agents last year. Going into this year, Grant, I know there hasn't been a lot of Packer talk this week. It's kind of a dead period, but
it's only Tuesday.
Are we feeling good? Are we I'm trying to turn the page. I don't want to talk about BYU. I want to turn the page and look forward to something. And it's like you pull up one screen, Wisconsin is like 60th in football recruiting right now. So then you click out that window. You pull up another screen, you're like, oh, the Packers still haven't done any movement on any major trades. Do we think we're just waiting for draft day at this point?
Probably, yeah. And Bill got a comment on the midday show today earlier. Appreciate it, Vagabond John. It's like, when are the Packers going to do something? Why haven't the Packers done anything? It's like, well, first of all, again, they did two pretty sizable things. They signed a starting corner and a starting guard. Good money spent there. Now, those weren't the moves a lot of folks wanted, myself included. Let's not act like they didn't do anything. And I think it's funny now, the Packers fans are like, well, why? It's so quiet. Well, yeah, the whole league's quiet. Free agency's kind of dwindled. Now, maybe there's a trade to be made for Trey Hendrickson. I kind of feel like the Bengals will just hold on to him one more year and then he'll depart. I don't think the Bengals extend players before they absolutely have to. And I don't think they're going to trade him away. Could happen. Just kind of my gut feeling on that situation right now. The Packers could do something with Jair, I guess, at some point. But no, I think we're in draft mode now, which means I need to go on vacation in another week because I can't grind the prospects. And Ebo and I were talking about this morning, everyone on the mock draft simulator. If you like doing mock drafts, that's fine. If you like learning about the prospects, that's fine. The one very, very specific pet peeve that I have is when people feel the need to posting their mock draft. That's one thing. That's fine. But it's the people who fit like 4 or 5 trades into 7 rounds. It's like, who's that for? Well, we're going to take pick 45 and package it with 62, and then we're going to move up in the second, but then you'll collect that value later. And it's like, really, if you look at the value chart, a 4th-round pick this year is equivalent to a 3rd-round pick next year. It's like, what? So stop it with the trades. Learning about prospects is fine. It's probably productive. It's definitely productive. I just don't like doing it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
What's up, Louie? What's going on?
Hey, Grant. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I'm kind of like you. Like this NIL transfer portal, of course, it's a big deal, but it's kind of become a cliche where I just kind of like tune it out. Like I don't really want to hear about it that much anymore. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But one thing I've heard in the last couple of days that's kind of irritated me. You know, Jay Billis said, well, you know, the coach transfer portal is always open. They can go wherever they want.
Jay Billis is a great analyst, the holier than thou. It's him and Jay Williams both. It's like, I'm sure he's a great guy. He's a good analyst. It's just that angle that he always takes. It's like, just climbed it. Just go into the seminary if that's how you want to go about life. You know what I mean, Louis?
I do know what you mean. And what really irritates me is these coaches are under contract. So, yes, they can move, but the school they are leaving is being compensated. They have some sort of buyout, whether that's $100,000 or $5 million or whatever it is. There is compensation involved. And I think that's kind of the pathway forward with NIL and transfer portal is that like a restricted free agency model where the school that you are currently enrolled in has a chance to match any NIL offer that you are given. What do you think?
Or like the European model in soccer that I'm not familiar with, but people always reference where like the next team has to buy you from your current team. You know what I mean? So there's some sort of check and balance and there's some sort of, okay, so I can get on board with that. That's a good call, Louis. The Jay Billis thing. It's, oh my God. It's like you could have an ESPN desk where it's like, hey, so players are transferring all the time. There's a lot of movement in college sports. Some movement should be okay, but how do we make this more controlled? How do we make this a better system for all? Very reasonable, right? And then Jay Billis would come in and be like, well, you can leave your job anytime you want. Oh my God, Jay. It's a holier than thou. And he makes good points. He's a good analyst, but it's the same with Jay Williams. Like Jay Williams, he always sounds like he's about to break into tears. It's the only way he ever delivers anything on TV. And I know this is like a niche thing. It just bothers me. It annoys me, obviously, because Louis brought it up and I immediately started ranting.
Because of Cinderella.
Well, yeah, and that too. Thank you, Stephen A., for pointing that out. Because of Cinderella. Eminem, why did you have a hit single on that album?
Because of Cinderella.
Yeah. Cinderella Man was the only reference I could think of on the fly. Not great, but it works. 608-321-1670. If you want to text the show, would love to have you. You can comment on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. When we come back, maybe we can kick around a couple of Packers talking points. It's a couple NFL headlines today that are probably worth covering. We don't need to dwell on them for 20, 25 minutes, but they're worth mentioning. The NFL probably is still number one, even though things are quiet right now. And I'll take more of your phone calls next as well. 608-321-1670. Like I said, back in a couple minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
because of Cinderella.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, got about 20 minutes left. Wide open phone lines. If you have something to say, you can grab them. Promise I won't make you wait very long. 608-321-1670. We've talked a lot of Bucks. This is probably the most Bucks-heavy show that we've had in a while. And on that last night, just another example of not just the Bucks losing. And I said this in hour number one. I think the body of work up until this point, the schedule that we've watched the Bucks play up until this point, is pretty clear, right? I don't think there's much mystery around this team. They have one of the best players in the world, and the supporting cast can hold their water some nights. And in the NBA, that's going to put you about where the Bucks have been put. You're going to be fighting for the 4th or the 5th seed. If things go your way, you might end up with the 4 pushing for the 3. And if things don't go your way, you might end up in the 5, danger of falling to the 6. Okay. The Bucks, because of Giannis, really are a good team. They're not a great team. So it's going to be nights when they play the Knicks, or they play the Cavs, or they play the Celtics, or they play the Thunder, or the Rockets, or the Pacers to a lesser degree. Did I just burp on the air? Excuse me. I can't make myself burp if I wanted. It's embarrassing. There's going to be nights where they play those teams, and it's like, you're not as fast, you're not as deep, you're not as strong, you're not as healthy. It's just the reality, right? Those games will happen. The hope is in the playoffs, when you see that team over and over again, they just can't rely on their 8th and 9th man. They just can't rely on their youth and their springiness, right? You get the game down into the trenches, it slows down, and the game comes, a little bit more naturally to the best players on the court, right? The team that's been there, done that, and that's the Bucks. It's a sliver of hope. It's a small sliver, but it's there. But last night, again, you have a lead in the closing seconds and you blow it because you can't execute defensively. Then you can't offensively put it together on the other end. It's like you're supposed to be the team that's more buttoned up and more experienced and able to execute situational basketball. If you can't do that, then what are we doing? Then what's the angle? What's the hope? If you can't do it in November, if you can't do it in February or March, why am I supposed to believe you can do it in April and May? 608-321-1670. Back to your calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Good evening, Eric on I-90.
Good evening, Grant Bills. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing excellent, actually. Well rested. I went to bed before the end of the Bucks game last night. It was a great decision.
I can't. I don't like these West Coast trips because I can't stay up long enough to watch the game, and I get interrupted in my sleep by Mrs. I-90 yelling at the TV.
Really? She stays up for it?
Yeah. Oh, she stays up for it. She watches it. She's not happy. Not happy generally, Yeah, this Bucks team, I don't know. It's less random than college basketball, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a little bit more test. Plus, when they get to the playoffs, they get to play a series, right?
Yep.
It isn't just some random game.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we can still have hope, right? Right? We still have hope.
Yeah, it's contingent on the thing is why I'm losing hope is it's supposed to be that Dame and Giannis are the first and second best player in any series, and they complement each other and they lead the charge, and they haven't really complemented each other. They're both great, Giannis especially, but it hasn't really added up to anything greater. And that was kind of the recipe, or that was supposed to be the recipe.
Right, and I believe if you go back and read what the court reporter said, I said that last year.
Yeah.
That these guys were not mixing together well.
And we thought last year part of that was Dame got added late. He missed training camp. They had 3 different coaches. We thought, okay, this year they have a full offseason. They haven't, and it hasn't looked much better. And now I think Dame might miss the rest of the regular season with this injury.
Yeah. So, and you're talking about football, and then I thought about our conversation yesterday on how active the Vikings have been compared to other teams. And there is probably a little bit more reason for that is that they don't hardly have any draft picks.
Yeah, they don't have much.
They don't have much. So they had to do something. But the one thing I did like is that when they picked up like Jordan Mason, I was like, I'm judging it all by my fantasy football team last year.
Yeah.
And I picked him up. And he had some good games. He's a player.
Jordan Mason to me is like that's crossing every T and dotting every I, saying like we're not going to rely on Aaron Jones being healthy. We want a nice second option. We want, you know what I mean? Like this every little contingency they seem to have planned for.
Well, Aaron Jones is not going to be a Josh Jacobs in any way, shape, or form. And he's a great third down option, right? Great third down option, and really happy he's on the team. And then we got Survivor, right?
Yeah.
Survivor. It's been good. But the strategies within that game, Grant, we got to kind of come up on Wednesdays or something, come up with a good, how do you strategize when you have a good alliance?
Mm-hmm.
But they talk too much for too long and it gets messed up.
Yep.
They should hold off on deciding who they're going to vote out until right before they grab the torches and head out and let all that other stuff pan out.
It always seems like it should be simple, and it never is, because there's always one person who's like, well, it seems obvious, but what if we didn't do that thing? What if we did something else that doesn't make nearly as much sense?
Right? And if you waited, too, if you had some sort of signal, and you waited till actually getting into the vote-off portion of it. I'm missing the term for it now.
Tribal council. Kahunaville, yeah.
Right? You can just sit and watch the most active vocal person, and that person's in the weakest position. Right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think this last episode, Eric, that's a great call. I think this last episode was so brilliant because Kyle and Camilla, like they hardly said anything to each other. There was no powwowing really. Like they just played it so well. And then this other alliance that's fat and happy and they're confident because it's going to be simple. And I don't know. I'm with you, Eric, but that's also TV, right? Like a lot of these decisions for the tribe, they should be clean cut. But then they start chatting and they start going back and forth and they talk themselves into things that they don't necessarily need to talk themselves into. Part of the entertainment, too. If every week was simple and cut and dry, the show wouldn't be as entertaining. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Clemhead Mike.
Hey, Clemhead. Wow, 2 great calls back-to-back to wrap up the segment. I'm doing great.
Well, you're putting the pressure on me.
Oh, yeah. How you been?
Good. How are you? I'm just glad to talk to you. It's been a while.
It has been.
Yeah, well, you're looking good. You got a little bit of color in your cheeks there.
Just a little bit. The black polo helps too, I think. Tony from Texas. This is his AAU polo he sent me in the mail. Very nice of him. I like it. It's nice. It makes me feel active. I feel like I should go get some shots up or something.
Yeah, I was just. I don't know. I've told you this before. I don't follow the NBA very much, but you and Bill make it interesting. So I'd rather just listen to you guys talk about it and fill me in.
Sports talk, good sports talk is often more entertaining than sports, or just as entertaining as sports.
It is. I don't really like watching the NBA. It's just the 3-point shots and drives to the lane and jams. It's the same thing to me. Survivor isn't real. Scripted. But
yeah, Eric and I are breaking it down like it's like, well, it's a TV show too. They need to keep that element of it.
Yeah. And the Brewers start at 2:00 on ESPN Thursday. It's of course it's the Yankees, so they're on ESPN. That's why the ESPN coverage of MLB failed so badly. And every year, of course, people are cutting the cord, and cable subscriptions are down nearly 50%. But ESPN costs so much to it's like $10 per subscriber just to have it standard stock ESPN, and that doesn't include all the other ESPNs. And people are dropping it, but it's like Bill said today, it's the Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, Mets, and nobody else. Nobody wants to watch it. Just those markets, nobody else. You don't see any of the other teams, and the rest of the country would like to watch too. And that's the only reason the Brewers are on ESPN, because it's the Yankees. Of course, it's the Yankees. It's always the Yankees.
Well, we get Joe Buck. We get Joe Buck and Bill Schroeder. I think Girardi's on too. It's gonna be fun.
I love Bill Schroeder, and I love the Brewers play-by-play announcers on TV. But I'm because I do have the ESPN app on my Samsung phone this year, so I'll watch ESPN for the Brewers, and that's it, and maybe Monday Night Football. But the rest of the year, I could care less if I had it. I wish I could just pay per game, like a la carte type of thing. Because I hate ESPN. I hate Stephen A. Smith. The clip you played today of Stephen A. Smith just so shows his stupidity.
Yeah.
Because of Cinderella.
Because of Cinderella. That whole thing, like that could have been a 10-second statement, and he turned it into 2 minutes, which is why he's great, I guess.
Because of Cinderella.
Yeah, I guess.
March Madness, the madness of March. I mean, he could pontificate for 10 minutes. Why his breakfast choices are better than yours.
March Madness. The madness of March. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's redundancy. I got to report him to the Department of Redundancy Department and see what they do.
There you go. I love that phrase. No, and I'm excited to watch on Friday. Look, and Clement, that's a good call. I don't know that it's market size. I don't know that it's the teams. I just don't know that in the summer that people are wanting to sit down on a Wednesday or a Sunday night to watch a baseball game that doesn't feature their teams. You know what I mean? Like, I'm watching my team every day. So if my team has Wednesday off, I'm probably going to go do something else. Especially me in this job, because it's like, oh, I am free of that responsibility of needing to watch the Brewers for work today. I'm going to go do something else. I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh, what other game is on? I don't know that it even matters which market or which team's playing.
College basketball, listen to what I'm saying, Coach. This has no effect on the allure of college basketball during the season. But March Madness, the madness of March. But March Madness, the madness of March.
One more quick call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, you're looking really good in that shirt.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you sending this. I will rep your team proudly. Very successful,
Hey.
I'm told. I only know what you tell me.
We're on a heater right now, Grant. 8-0, taking out all the shoe teams, Puma, Adidas, Nike, you name it, looking for big deals. And if I get a team up there, Grant, I want you to be my coach. 8th grade, 7th grade, you name it, you got it.
Oh my God. Well, I appreciate you sending this. Is this the same one that you wear? Is this the ones that we see on the sideline? Oh, good. Okay.
Absolutely. Nice Nike polo for you. Hey, my team wins because of defense. My best players buy into what we're doing. Do you think the Bucks' best players are buying into what Doc's telling them?
That's a good question. Maybe we can wrap up the show with that. I think they like Doc. I don't know that they're buying into anything. I just think they like Doc. I don't think the Suns players like Bud. I don't think the Bucks players liked Griff. I think they like Doc. And in 2025, I'm not saying that's the only thing that matters, but that's a big part of it in the NBA, sadly.
It is. Yeah. I mean, my players like me, but, they're not making millions of dollars. They're just out there for the real thing, the real passion of basketball, competition, sports. And that's what's been lost in professional sports, especially the NBA. And that's why the ratings are down. And it's a tough watch. But, the Bucks had their run. Grant, we've all dated that one hot girl before, and I think you're probably with that one right now, I might add.
Well.
So, we had our one shining moment with the Bucks. And, that's probably all we're going to get with Giannis. But, 2021 we'll always remember.
We will, and thank God we got it. And, 2022, I'm not going to forget 2018, 2019, but I don't know. I don't always like when a team wins a championship and the instant response is, well, they should have had more. Okay, maybe. But especially for little old Milwaukee in the NBA, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. Breaking NFL news. A quarterback is signed. A big-time, a Super Bowl winning quarterback is signed. I'll tell you who, and I'll tell you where when we wrap up the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Final 2 minutes, the Wisco Sports Show. Some breaking NFL news. Russell Wilson has signed with the Giants. 1 year, about $10.5 million guaranteed, with a chance to earn up to $21 million. At least the Giants will be watchable, I guess. I mean, the Giants, I think you would be shocked and appalled if you looked back through the last couple of years and you looked at the scoring totals. The Giants, I mean, it's not just that they lose. It's that they don't score. They don't do anything. They're a wasteland for betting, for fantasy football. There's nothing to say. There's nothing to follow. There's nothing to watch. So Russell Wilson, Malik Neighbors, okay. Darius Slayton, I believe they brought him back. It was a possible free agent that I know some people had discussed for the Packers and, other teams, other people as well. The Giants will be watchable. I'm not sure what they will be past Pat. They'll be watchable. I think they should be watchable. This leaves basically the Steelers now for Aaron Rodgers. And I guess I'm not surprised that it's taking so long because it's Aaron Rodgers and it's just kind of how he operates. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just how he is. I guess I wonder now if Rodgers has waited this long, how long exactly will he wait? You know what I mean? I don't necessarily expect him to sign tomorrow. I guess he could. I thought he would sign within the first couple of days of free agency, and the fact that he hasn't yet leads me to believe that, well, maybe he's going to wait until after the draft. And maybe, and I heard Cowherd mention this today, and Cowherd has poo-pooed the Steelers as a destination for Rodgers. Well, they can't get the O-line right. They have diva wide receivers. Okay, but what are other options? You know what I mean? Like, where else is he going to go and have an even halfway decent chance at winning some games? But Cowherd did make a good point earlier today. I think it was in his segment with Nick Wright, which I watched. He's like, well, don't you think Kirk Cousins might have handled it differently last year had he known what the Falcons were planning to do in the draft? So maybe Rodgers feels the same way. If he hasn't signed yet, why would he do it anytime soon? Is he really pondering? There's only one team left for him. It's the Steelers, and a team that seems to clearly want him. I'll post the podcast in just a couple minutes. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 4.